The night Tunde pressed the small crescent moon icon on his phone and turned on Do Not Disturb, he did it out of anger, not wisdom. His wife, Amara, had just finished telling him in a trembling voice that she felt alone raising their daughter while he buried himself in work, and instead of listening, he chose silence as his weapon. The argument had not been loud, but it had been heavy, like a dark cloud that refused to move. Their daughter, little Zara, had stood by the doorway clutching her drawing book, watching two people she loved speak like strangers. Tunde had walked away, grabbed his car keys and muttered, "I need peace," before stepping out into the night. He believed he deserved quiet after a long day, but what he did not realize was that peace without love becomes loneliness. As he drove to his friend's house, his phone buzzed several times in his pocket, but he ignored it proudly, comforted by the fact that DND mode meant he would not hear a thing. He told himself Amara would calm down and that Zara would go to sleep. He convinced himself that ignoring them for one night would teach them to respect his space. What he did not know was that some nights do not wait for pride to cool down. At home, Zara began coughing badly, the kind that bent her tiny body forward and made her chest struggle for air. Amara's hands shook as she reached for her phone and called Tunde again and again, but each time the call went straight to silence. She sent messages explaining that Zara's breathing was not normal, that she needed him, that she was scared, but the phone did not vibrate in Tunde's pocket. The moon icon glowed softly on his screen, guarding him from the very people who needed him most. Amara did not waste time crying. She wrapped Zara in a sweater and rushed her to the nearest hospital with the help of a neighbor. As she sat in the emergency room holding her daughter's hand, she kept glancing at her phone, hoping Tunde would call back. Zara whispered between coughs, "Is Daddy coming?" And Amara forced a brave smile, even though her heart was cracking. The hospital lights were bright and cold, and in that moment, Amara realized that marriage was not about who wins arguments, but about who shows up when fear knocks. Meanwhile, Tunde sat in his friend's living room laughing at a football match, pretending the argument did not exist. His friend noticed he checked his phone once, frowned at the silent notifications, and then turned it face down again. "Family wahala?" his friend asked jokingly, but Tunde waved it off. "Just small misunderstanding," he replied, though something inside him felt unsettled. The laughter around him sounded distant, like noise from another room. Later that night, as he prepared to drive home, he finally turned off Do Not Disturb. The phone exploded with missed calls and urgent messages. His heart dropped as he read Amara's texts about Zara's breathing and the hospital. His hands began to tremble. The peace he had protected suddenly felt foolish. Without thinking, he rushed to the hospital, guilt racing faster than his car. When Tunde arrived, he saw Amara sitting quietly outside the ward, her shoulders tired, but her eyes strong. She did not shout when she saw him. She did not insult him. She simply said, "She asked for you." That sentence cut deeper than any anger could. He stepped into Zara's room and saw his daughter sleeping with his small oxygen mask resting gently on her face. Machines beeped softly beside her bed, and the sight made his knees weak. The doctor explained that Zara had suffered a severe asthma attack, but was now stable because she was brought in on time. Tunde nodded, but his mind replayed the image of the missed calls. What if Amara had delayed? What if their neighbor had not been around? What if pride had cost him something he could never replace? He realized that silence is sometimes louder than shouting, and his silence had almost spoken a painful story. The next day, they drove home together, quiet but thoughtful. Zara slept peacefully in the back seat, her small fingers wrapped around her teddy bear. Tunde wanted to apologize 100 times, but words felt too small. Amara stared out of the window, not with anger, but with reflection. The road ahead seemed long, but so did the journey back to trust. When they reached home, Tunde finally spoke. "I thought I needed space," he said softly, "but I forgot that love does not take breaks." Amara sighed and replied, "We all need rest, Tunde, but not from each other." That evening, instead of hiding behind his phone, he sat beside Zara and read her favorite story twice, noticing how her smile slowly returned. A few days later, Zara surprised them both during dinner. She placed her small phone toy on the table and said, "Daddy, don't put your family on silent again." Her words were innocent but powerful. Tunde felt tears gather in his eyes. Children may not understand arguments, but they understand absence. That night, he and Amara talked honestly, without shouting. They discussed how stress had made them careless with each other's feelings. They agreed that problems should be faced together, not separately. Tunde promised never to ignore important calls again, and Amara promised to speak calmly, even when hurt. Healing, they realized, begins with listening. Trust does not return overnight like electricity after a power cut. It grows slowly like a planted seed. Tunde began coming home earlier and keeping his phone beside him with sound on. He helped Zara with homework and washed dishes without being asked. These small acts were not grand gestures, but they were steady and sincere. Amara noticed the effort and responded with kindness. She left encouraging notes in his bag and thanked him when he tried. Their home began to feel warmer, not because arguments disappeared, but because they learned how to handle them better. Kindness started replacing pride. Weeks later, Zara had a school play where she was to act as a brave little lion. This time, Tunde cleared his schedule completely. He arrived early, phone fully charged and not on silent. As Zara stepped onto the stage and spotted her parents smiling at her together, her confidence doubled. After the performance, she ran into their arms, shouting, "You both came!" Tunde held Amara's hand tightly, understanding that being present is a gift no money can buy. He realized that success at work means little if your family claps for you from a distance you created yourself. Life did not suddenly become perfect, but something had changed. When disagreements arose, Tunde no longer walked away with anger. Instead, he paused and asked, "Can we talk about this?" Amara too chose patience over harsh words. They both understood that marriage is not about finding a perfect partner, but about being a kind one. They began teaching Zara simple lessons about communication. "If you are hurt, speak," Amara would say. "If someone calls you in need, answer," Tunde would add. The story of the night of D&D became a family reminder, not a secret shame. One evening, months later, Tunde scrolled through his phone settings and looked at the Do Not Disturb feature. He did not delete it, he simply understood its place. Silence is useful for meetings and sleep, but never for running away from responsibility. He turned to Amara, who was helping Zara with a puzzle, and felt grateful that one painful mistake led to growth instead of separation. As they sat together laughing at Zara's silly jokes, Tunde whispered, "Thank you for staying." Amara smiled and replied, "Thank you for learning." And in that simple exchange, their home became stronger than before. The moral was clear and gentle. Marry a kind partner, be a kind partner, and never let pride silence love when it matters most.